Good evening and welcome to The Square. Tonight's discussion is going to focus on the impact of the COVID-19 pandemic on the creative industries. You know, for many artists, photographers, musicians, a lot of them, their livelihoods and revenues have been impacted because they're dependent on the very thing that causes this virus to spread, which is public spaces as well as crowd gatherings. We're here to look at innovative solutions that many people in the creative industry, not only in Rwanda but across the globe, have adopted to stay afloat during the coronavirus COVID-19 pandemic, as also look at challenges that are affecting creatives in Rwanda. Joining us on the show, we have with us Hope Azeda. Hope Azeda is the director of Mashirika Performing Arts Company, as well as the annual Ubumuntu Arts Festival. Hope, great to have you with us tonight.
Thank you for having me.
Great. And then we are also joined with us by Ivan Buravan. He is a very popular artist in Rwanda. Ivan, also known as Ivan, thank you for joining us on the show.
Thank you very much for having me.
Great. My name is Dana Mpisi, host of The Square, and I'm also joined by our resident panelists on The Square. Brana Namata, I'll start with you. Great to have you as always.
Thank you, Dana.
Great. Charles Haber, great to have you on the show.
Nice to meet you, Dana. How are you?
Good, good. Before we usually do, we have a midweek recap of interesting things that you, our resident panelists, Brenda and Charles, would like to share. Is there anything you have briefly for tonight's show?
Two things. One is related to this show. Dana and I, and Bana as well, probably less of Diana. I think Bana and I, we probably prepared very well. Bana's hairstyle is very creative.
That's true.
And I also tried to look as with my short-sleeved shirt and as creative as we could be.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Bana.
Brenda, anything you'd like to add for the midweek?
Yes, today as we came in, unfortunately I don't follow social media as such, but the people at home showed me a picture of a lady who has a certificate with negative results, and
in Rwanda.
Yeah, she looks so good, and we thank God that she's well, and I hope that she will be given the privacy that she deserves to, resume her normal life. She shouldn't be branded and stigmatized. What happened, and she has to rebuild her life and move on.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But then, if I may,
yes.
and I'm glad that Bana has brought this up around privacy and the lady. Just this week, RDB did pull out an announcement around how people are supposed to approach public places, especially restaurants, hotels, cafes. Everyone thinks it's about infringing on their privacy. I think the reason for which RDB brought it up is valid, but indeed it's infringing on people's privacy. I think there's a smarter way to do it.
Topic for
I
know that's a hot topic for most likely next week. I know there's been a lot of debates on, if you go to a restaurant, you have to hand in your ID, your telephone number, and so forth and so on. And there are concerns about security. But yeah, I think
it's a pandemic.
It's a pandemic, and like I keep on saying, unprecedented times. But it's something worth considering for debate in the ensuing shows. So thank you very much to our viewers for tuning in, and for our guests, Ivan and Hope. Great to have you here. We're discussing the creative industry, cultural and creative industries, and how they've been impacted by this pandemic. You know that the very essence in which this sector thrives on and is functional is because of crowd gatherings and public spaces, which technically have been banned by lockdowns across the globe and also in Rwanda. So I'm going to start with you, Eva. If you can tell us, some of the challenges you face as a musician, as an artist in Rwanda. I know that some concerts you had planned are no longer in the pipeline in Rwanda as well as out of Rwanda. So if you could just share with us some of the challenges you've faced as an artist since the start of the pandemic.
Thank you very much. Yes, since the start of the pandemic, I think it started while actually I was outside the country, and when I got here after 2 weeks, that's when the country got to get to the lockdown, complete lockdown. And I was supposed to do a show 2 weeks later, like after the lockdown. And that's one of the challenges. I had 2 other concerts in this month that we're in May, outside the country. They were cancelled. And yeah, I haven't been able to keep working. Okay, right now I've got back at it, but before, when it was total lockdown, I couldn't go to the studio, and that kills an artist. But again, I used the time to write more music. So as per the challenges, that those cancellation of concerts and not being able to work on what you have to work on was really, really hard.
And you know, you said something very interesting, not being able to go to studio to create. It really kills an artist. So how did you keep your creative spirit, if I can say, alive during this period?
I mean, creation is a process of getting deep into the spirit and have to speak your mind, speak what you feel, speak things as you see them. And going to the studio, that's when you are done and you are going to record to have the final project. So I've been working on that first step of creation. That's what I've been working on. So you understand that I used that time. So I created a lot, but I wasn't able to go and record what I created. That was the challenge.
Let's hear from Hope. Hope Azeda, you have been creating the Ubumuntu Arts Festival for a long time now. And you had planned it was planned as well for this year, I think in June, July. If you can share with us as well, as a director of festivals and, a theater company, what are some of the key challenges you faced during the COVID-19 pandemic?
Very close to what Eva just really tapped on. For us, we depend on having people present in the space. We love eye contact a lot, and we love having a space where an experience of like cooking a meal together is felt. You smell the food, you eat it, but now we have to like think otherwise. So basically, regarding the festival, which it was supposed to take place in July, and we had about 16 countries that we are going to travel here. But out of the 16 countries, we had about 3 other countries that we are going to travel here around April to start collaborations. We had a school that was supposed to come from UK and come here in July and create a piece of work with other young people, which was supposed to go on tour in UK and end up in the Commonwealth Games 2 years later. But all that has been cancelled now. All the companies that were supposed to come, we have had to cancel that. Now we are looking at the other option. How do we create a similar experience virtually? How do we create the content that we can use online? So we could not just wait for July, where like now, it's certain kind of event that was inviting people to come. Now they're not coming, but we need to build an audience online. So we straight away jumped into the boiling sea and started 100 Stories of Home, which is usually like 100 days before the festival takes place in July. So we have had to create weekly series that have been running now for 3 weeks, in the hope that we create an audience online that will follow the festival in July. But that's just one of the events. But all our community projects as a company have had to stop. We had a lot of shows lined up this year, community-wise. So we are now like saying, okay, we cannot take online products to the refugee camps. What do we take there? So we're trying to see how do we create digital content that we can maybe air on a radio station, let's say in a refugee camp, and people can have access to that kind of information. So we're looking for ways and hows to keep breathing, because we can't die twice.
That's true. That's true. Very well said, Hope. Charles, Brenna, would you like to add to the guests have said?
Eva and Hope have said something that I have never thought about. And in the previous editions that we've had around managing COVID-19, we've had telecoms, ISPs, and what have you. I was thinking, couldn't it be a huge opportunity for telecoms and ISPs to actually sponsor events by providing bandwidth for internet connectivity for online shows? And I think that would be a fabulous idea. But in addition to that, it would probably be a lot cheaper. And I'm sure if Eva or Hope was to walk up to MTN for corporate sponsorship, probably ask tens of millions of francs. But if they are to ask them, can you provide unlimited bandwidth throughout my production, it would probably be a third of the budget. So that's really just what I had to input that I picked from what Eva and Hope have said. Yes.
Brenna, is there something you'd like to add?
I think that it's it's extremely tough, and of course for everyone. What we've seen that every industry is having to adjust and pivot. You know,
and that's a hot word right now, by the way.
Yeah, and the creative industry, I think, will bear the brunt, because most people still look at it as a luxury. You know, few people will feel that they should be spending right now around the creative industry as a whole. So you want to think about, I mean, like Charles just mentioned, how do you come up with incentives that support the industry to at least change the mindset of consumers, not to just look at it as a luxury? Because behind the luxury, I mean, there are so many jobs around, their livelihoods, these people have families. If you followed Hope's festivals, she has, over 100 people, So if these people are not able to get together, if she cannot support them, then what happens? The concerts that he puts together, that is his livelihood. But on the other hand, then you also want to imagine that artists will now begin to target global audiences, and I think this is also, again, a lesson from the pandemic. When you're in your creative space, as much as you think local, you have to think about the messaging being global. Because right now, with the internet, your audience is global. So can you put out a message that relates to, because we are seeing that the challenges that we face today are shared. We have common challenges, and whatever you can do within your creative space could actually be consumed beyond the borders. And like we were mentioning before the show, we've seen some artists being able to come up with online concerts. But again, these are people who are already online and have a following. Some of them now are beginning from zero. Yeah, so it's not an easy
It's
one.
not easy.
So Diana,
yes.
I want to take on the point on artists who are already online. And it's very, very important to understand why those artists were already online. And for everybody across the board, and it has very little to do with the creative industry, a lot to do with literally everybody, including government, working at home, and so on and so forth. Predominantly, the artists who have made it, or who have continued to become relevant, were those who were already targeted by not so necessarily good stories. So, if I would agree with me that if, for example, Cat Vevo was already hitting on you, the likelihood of you doing something online would be extremely high. If already you had a YouTube following of hundreds of people, the likelihood of you doing a video or whatever content you produce and put online is extremely high. So it's actually a blessing in disguise for most of the creatives, irrespective of where you lie across the chain, that they are now beginning to appreciate that having an online brand, having a social media brand is extremely more important than it has ever been before.
Actually, and this is what I want to now take the next part of the conversation to, because a lot of the viewers, especially those online, have been saying in the tweets that we're going to read later that this has been a blessing in disguise to, you know, to most of the artists. So I'll start with you, Ivan, on this regarding innovative solutions. And we've seen that you know, there's an emergence of online festivals, there's an emergence of online concerts. A lot of artists are taking their work online, and rightly so. So if you could share with us what you, you know, or your organization is doing to stay relevant, to stay online, regarding activities. If you can share with us some ideas that you have in the pipeline or are currently about to be executed in terms of what innovative solutions you have to deal with this crisis.
Thank you. Since it started, we saw that there was about to be a huge change in however business is done in the creatives. So me and my team sat and saw that now that we cannot have contact with people because that's how we do our work, how do we keep entertaining those people? And because for us, that's our passion. Like, we like to give happiness. And that's how I started a series of live Instagram every Monday and Thursday. Like, I have huge numbers of people with me that we sing together, that we talk, and they tell me how they have been coping up with all this, and I tell them how I've been coping up, and we get again to have that feeling of being together as my fans, as their artist. And we have more than 5,000 people every once, and I do that twice a week. So I think after we saw those consequences, bad consequences, then I think it opened our eyes to see or to look at the digital market that is huge. And if I say 5,000, those are not only Rwandans, those are people across Africa, everywhere in the world. And I think that's a good thing. Actually, I think it's good business for even those telecommunication companies, because if you have those numbers, every one of them need to use internet. And if you think you are a good internet provider, that's how we get to work together, and that's business. So I think despite all those bad things that has been as consequences from COVID, we are seeing other good and positive things that can come out of digital world.
And you know, a lot of the onus is on creatives to come up with creative solution, because by default everyone thinks you know, this is a bunch of creative people, so this pandemic really, it's not going to take them down. Hope, if you can share with us what Ubumuntu Arts Festival as well as Mashirika is doing, innovative solutions to stay afloat during this pandemic.
Audiences, and this was inspired by the Kwibuka 20, because usually on the 7th of April we create a new production. So we had dancers who were in residence, and because of the lockdown they could not continue doing this work. So we told them, since we cannot meet and mourn at the memorial, why don't you just go home, get a candle, and engage with the light around that candle, because right now we are looking at different worlds, light and darkness, and this is really key into our lives as human beings, but also as artists. So from there on, we created a series for young audiences called Flames of Hope, And now we are sharing and doing like international collaborations around just that word, Flames of Hope, where a dancer would get a candle and do their remembering just at home in their living room. And the question is, what does that light bring into your life? So on Tuesdays, we also do IG live sessions, which we have called a home chat with Sonia. And it's amazing. It's just basically checking on and paying a visit to our fellow artists in their homes and asking them, how is it going? But it's been amazing, the feedback really coming. Like, most artists are also using this period to create new content, to reflect and recraft their work. Wednesdays, we have also dedicated it to new works, which we have called Beyond Now. It looks at visual and video mapping and all that, really creative works around more like video artists' work and visual works. And then on Thursdays is our day dedicated to discussions with diaspora, because now the world has become a small village. We used to struggle to like have our fellow Rwandese be part of our conversation of humanity, but now we are doing it on IG Live every Thursdays from 6 to 7. And then on Friday is what we have dedicated to art and therapy. So personally, I like works that really tap on soul. So we have called those series Ripples of Soul. And this is where you find like testimonial work. So this is really, really rich content. To produce it and to make it be consistent online is not easy, because we have different challenges. You have like slow internet, the infrastructure is not yet in place. Audiovisual studios is also still a challenge. But regardless, we are trying to make sure that we stay on our feet and make sure that we build our audiences and we sell our content, because it's not just like music. Music is I think, to put out there, but when it comes to performing arts or visual, it's not as easy as it may look. But yeah, so that's what we've really, that's what we are looking at and working on, yeah.
And I know it's not easy. Already, I think the creative sector, the creative industries, cultural and creative industries across the world, notwithstanding Rwanda, are sectors that are not really invested in heavily by government, compared to other sectors. So already there's a shortfall. And then on top of that, being hit by this pandemic, and this pandemic, is really specific to certain sectors. For the creative industry, it really hits hard, because public gatherings, public spaces and gatherings of crowds are banned. So essentially, it really hits the creative sector. So in these innovative ways that you're looking to stay afloat online, Hope, if I can also ask you, and then later on to Yvan, how can some of these activities you're doing be monetized to bring in revenues? What ideas do you have? And talking to our viewers, as well as talking to us here, how do you make money, so to speak, of your ideas online?
Obviously, you have to first build your brand. People have to first trust that brand. It's like if you're a drummer and you have drums, it's a very busy street. This digital market is crazy. It's a busy, busy street. And if you don't really work so hard, you get drowned. You drown on the street. No one will look at you. So what we are doing right now is just like taking our drums out and drumming them, and like, hey, I drum, I'm good at drumming, and have these drums are made of skin, it's all that. So we're just pushing ourselves out there saying, we are alive. But what I wanted to say also is that there are a lot of networks that now we can join as artists. You don't have to be an American or anywhere. These are online networks. And if you're a writer, you sign up to these networks and you can, you can be paid for your kind of work you're doing. You can join workshops, you can join master classes in visual arts, and all you do is pay maybe $10 per month when you sign up in these kind of networks. So we are hoping that after we've built properly our platforms, they're going to be also our markets. So we are hoping to create like digital platforms where people can exhibit their works and we market them and sell their works as well. So we are doing everything at the same time, creating a market, creating jobs, also trying to, train ourselves to those kind of markets. But also it's very important that at this point I can also point out that it's an opportunity for us to equip ourselves with different tools to, market ourselves, because it's not easy out there.
Absolutely. And I really like what you talk about looking inward and investing in yourself and being proactive about it and not waiting for some of these lessons to be taught or some of these issues to be handed to you. Eva, if you can also share with us ideas on how to monetize, for instance, some of your concerts or some of your shows online. How are you getting revenues, if any, so to speak?
Yes. Like even before the COVID-19, there is a way we use to monetize our music through digital platforms of music. We all know the music platforms, the YouTube monetization. Now Facebook has brought live streaming that is monetized. That's what we are working on. That's what I was telling you. When we are like having those shows, that one I have on every Monday and Thursday from 9 p.m. to 10:30 p.m., 1 hour and a half. Those are the numbers that we monetize. And yes, we are still working on it. It's not yet like already there, but we are working on it, and we can see that from that we will have, to get to live again from what we do. Like again, about the concerts, we were talking about the concerts cancelled, but now I'm glad to say that now we do not do concerts in Rwanda, in any other country. Now we are working as if the whole world was one place. So I will let you know in these coming days. I have another concert with other African artists. Like those are some stuff that are being worked on to generate money from what we do.
Great. It can be easy, but I have to applaud the proactiveness of creatives in the creative industry to like seek solutions, on their own before waiting for these solutions to be handed to them. Brenna, is there something you'd like to add?
Well, I think we are listening to the big fish.
Yes.
Who already have their hands, somewhere.
Yes.
But you want to think about an artist who probably has just emerged and is trying to find their bearing. It's tough. It's extremely tough. And that's where you would probably need a fund or they need facilitation in a way. For instance, he raised the issue of sound, the recording. Is there a way that artists, if you, for instance, need to record at this point, you can be facilitated? Because remember, they're not among the essential services. And I don't know if people can still go to the studio, so it's still difficult. So they still need a push. And to Charlie's earlier point, the internet is still expensive. The infrastructure is not there. It's not there. Yeah. So if you're going to produce for a global audience, it's tough. It's extremely tough. They expect quality. Online audiences are ruthless.
Very true.
Yes. You might start your live and people will just attack you and you'll be forced, you'll be depressed. So they will need support. The big names probably will survive. Today I had someone, Bruce Melody.
Bruce Melody, yes.
Has his own record label, which is good because I remember Bruce as a young man from KFM when he launched his career. And he was just, a small guy. And it's been amazing seeing him grow, year in, year out, and, hit after hit. So some of these young people that are not yet, that the media has not perhaps picked interest in, the internet provides that opportunity that you can just emerge, from nowhere with no media attention, just with your live audience. But they need a bit of support.
A bit of support.
Yeah.
Actually, just to tap on what you were saying before, we hear from Charles. I think Yes, like you said, it's going to be a bit tough for the media, for these emerging artists, to break out. But actually, I think it might work in their favor more to be able to break out online because it's cheaper for them. Because for an emerging artist, you're looking at booking a venue, looking for sponsorship, trying to gather crowds. People don't really know you. But I think there's a sort of level playing field by the fact that they can try and do this while they're online. So it might work in the favor for emerging artists to break out during this period. Charles?
Two things. One, first of all, about emerging artists. I think this is the best opportunity they have to compete against those who are several tiers above them. If you look at, for example, Kenya Trap. Kenya Trap is
Kenya Trap is it's like rap, but in Kinyarwanda, and a specific
rap.
Type of rap.
Yes.
At that.
And
Charles,
this,
I'm impressed.
Yes.
Or is this a result of, is this information from your daughters?
No.
Actually, is it the one, this guy who sings Kugasima? Is that?
No, there's quite a number of artists.
What's the name of that guy?
There's Bushari.
Bushari.
Yes.
And Green Ferry as well.
Yeah, he's in that. But there's quite a number of them who are at different tiers. And probably I'll give an example of Iva Buravan. He doesn't sing Kenya Trap, but I'll give an example of him where he is vis-a-vis where he was 5 years ago. At that time, he was probably looking forward to being like the likes of Family Squad or I don't know, whoever was on vogue at that time, at that level. Fast forward, he is where he is. But several tiers below, there are those who are there. He is lucky that there were opportunities like Guma Guma Superstar and so on and so forth. When he was growing up, he did not have the opportunities of online growth that the kids have today. And I think Rwandan music or music globally is going to grow faster than ever before because of online opportunity. And I'm going back to the point of sponsorship that I started with at the beginning of the show. Can you imagine small ISPs like Mango, True Connect, Popcorn, Axiom have an opportunity for brand visibility almost at the same level of Liquid and MTN?
Because of this, the online
or
doors
even
that have been
better
opened.
still, the likes of Iva Buravan,
Yes.
if MTN is being very cagey and cocky as Airtel or Primus or Henken, the top brands, or BK, in terms of signing him on as a brand ambassador, he actually has an opportunity with Liquid Telecom. Or Axiom for that matter. So because the biggest opportunity player today is the ISP, so to speak. But I want to say something that tickled my mind over the weekend. The head of state was in Gako at a function addressing the Senior Army Council. I stand to be corrected on the exact naming of that forum. Now, I picked interest in how those people got there, how they sat there, and everything. I didn't stop at that. I said, how is public transport being rolled out today? Social distancing and what have you. So you had the entire army brass, senior officers and those who occupy significant positions, being driven to one destination, hundreds of miles away, several miles away, out of Kigali city, to one meeting, where the head of state was in the middle of the lockdown that is partially lifted. So I asked myself one thing. The likes of Hope Azeda, Arthur Nation and his comedy nights and all the other guys, what would stop us from actually going to watch a Mashirika production or a comedy show during this lockdown period?
Interesting.
Yes.
Interesting. You know, I was reading in lots of the literature that's going around this COVID-19 pandemic. There's a publication I was reading where they were very specific about certain sectors that would actually thrive during this period of shutdowns. Spoken word Rwanda. We've had a couple of online shows the last 2 months.
No, there's nothing that will stop you from having a physical show.
Yes. So there are certain sectors that this publication was saying that there are some that are immediate losers, there are some that will, kind of, and then there's some that will thrive. And the creative industry, this is also, as much as they're hard hit, it's also an opportunity for them to thrive. So just very quickly, Hope, I'd like to get back to you. Last question to Hope and Yvan before we go to our Twitter feed. And, this shutdown or partial shutdown, partial lockdown, if you will, I think it's going to be in place for a couple of months, probably, who knows, until the end of the year, because looking at a vaccine being found and trying to maintain and contain the outbreak, I think it's the lockdown is here to stay for a certain period of time. And I want to ask you just very quickly, what support do you think the creative sector needs, number one, and what role do you think the creative sector has to play in this pandemic? So first question is to do with what support you need. How do you think government can support the creative industries during this time? And what role creatives have to play during this pandemic? And Hope, I'll address these first questions to you.
We just need the infrastructure in place. We don't have audiovisual studios. That is a very, very big challenge, because if somebody cannot have a place to go and record their song, how will they sell the song? And internet, if you can have just audio visual studios and internet, for me, I think this is the strongest pillar creative industries need right now. The rest we can try to grab here and there. Digital marketing is also a big challenge, but that one we can figure out how we've been doing the same thing with Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and all that. But for me, those two really are key, because even like the festival I'm trying to fix now in July, I have that challenge, because I could have experts on board. Maybe they work in another country, but I need a studio in place. So, for me, I think that is really where we need to address.
And what role do you think the creative industry has to play, during this period, not only in Rwanda, but across the world? What is the call for creatives during this time?
What we need to play is to try and be part of what is going on with communication. How would we help also the COVID-19 to spread? How do we tailor that in our messaging, in our platforms? How would we use these platforms to help the government pitch this message? Because we are in this all together, So for me, I think this is where we need to play a very big part and be part of the mouthpiece of whatever is happening. Because this is the time we need to come together. There's also already what's going on right now. There's a lot of mental anxiety. There's also a lot of depression going on. The kind of content we are creating now should be helping people carry on and know that we have the spirit of resilience, and through who we are as Rwandese, we can carry on through. Because there's a lot of, people are giving up, and this is not the time to give up.
Thank you very much, Hope. Eva, if I can ask you the same question, what support do you think the creative industries need from government and other stakeholders, as well as what role do you think creatives have during this pandemic in Rwanda as well as globally speaking?
Yeah. Adding up to what Hope just said, that is very true. I think also we need to work together, and that's where we actually meet. What we need from maybe all other organizations, including the government and other business buddies, for some artists, they are well settled in everything. But as we were talking about it, there are artists that are maybe eager to emerge in this time. I think there must be a way of granting some funds, but again, those funds get accessed by artists that has something to add on this thing that is going on, the pandemic, maybe address ways of getting through it, maybe use your art to address, to tell everybody how to work together, to live together in this pandemic period. So I think what we need from them and what they need from us is where we meet. That's infrastructure, that's money to do it, that's our art, that's our everything that we do. And that means working together. And I think with all that, we will win, as it was said.
So we have a couple of tweets lined up that I'd like us to go to quickly, and some of them also include questions for Hope and Diva. So the first tweet we have is is from Olga, who says, the illness impacted the music industry. Illness, I'm sure she's talking about the pandemic. Lots of festivals were postponed, others were cancelled, live entertainment industry experts lose income. But then this lockdown is an opportunity for creative thoughts, which takes time. Musicians have to consider the internet as a means of marketing. That's our first tweet from Olga. We have a second tweet coming in, and this tweet is from Richard. Richard Niwenshuti states that this is one industry that if we're going to stay longer in social distancing, the effect is still on. Convening big audiences might not be so soon, and so innovative solutions to maintain performance in this industry is needed. Virtual shows are the way to go. Like, some of the tips that we're going to keep on
Can I say
on.
something about that?
Yes.
I am an ardent attender, if I can
We know.
politely say that, about comedy.
Comedy nights.
Not comedy nights.
Nights of comedy. Saka Live?
Yes, Saka Live.
Saka Live.
And quite a number of so Arthur and his group and whoever comes on, they have a way of hyping it up, and they keep, making you expect the next. The same applies to Kigali Jazz Junction. Now, we have been waiting for Trevor Noah to come on Seka Live, because for the last 1 year, Arthur has been telling us he's going to bring Trevor Noah.
Okay.
He has never committed to a date, but he's gotten his audience glued onto Trevor Noah's content on YouTube. Fast forward, he brought a guy who produces Trevor Noah's shows, a guy whom we didn't know.
Okay.
And we got to know the guy and like the guy. So I think it's the point here I'm raising is that it's a huge opportunity to be known. Yes.
Our other tweet comes from Zed, and Zed, if you can have this tweet on our screen, please, says that definitely the music industry will experience a huge challenge as social distancing time increases. I remember when we had the first abrupt announcement on 8th March 2020, cancelling Ichirenga Mubuhanzi concert, no other concert until now. Absolutely, I think this lockdown or partial lockdown, if you will, yes, is here to stay.
So annoyed.
It was crazy, but I think we didn't really understand the magnitude of this pandemic, when it was being shut down. Our next tweet is also from Zed by saying that artists can survive by exploring online platforms, which is a great experience that will carry on even after the social distancing
Talk of Danny
period.
Beats. I actually like that too, because it just reminds me of Danny Beats and his creation.
Exactly. And then we also have another tweet from Olga, who states that online platforms are best since large number of youth are occupied by the internet. Thus, it would be a good solution to the musicians who would like to communicate to the audience. So, a lot of what we are seeing is that people are looking at this as a silver lining for most of our artists. We also have another tweet coming in, and this person says that I actually see this as an opportunity for creative industry to recreate and think and innovate deeper, even though the show business is hit. Few musicians tried online performances, which is a good initiative, but still seems challenging to other artists. What's Azeda's plan B? Hope if you could quickly answer that tweet.
I don't agree with Jean-Aimé that the show business has been hit.
Yeah.
without online, you
Yeah.
cannot make it in show business.
Just before Hope answers that question, we have another tweet also coming in that's asking her question. And Hope, I hope you can see this on your screen. And this tweet is from Omurasha, who says that the current crisis is particularly critical for creative sectors due to sudden and massive loss of revenue opportunities. Mashirika Rwanda, what policy supports have you put in place to alleviate short and long-term effects of the crisis on the creative industry and their broader ecosystem? Hope, I don't know if you're into policy making, but yeah, if you could share with us a bit more details on Plan B of Ubumunhu and Mashirika, and if you're engaged in policy making, at least with policymakers to a certain degree.
Into that other area of policy making. What we are doing right now is we are strategizing differently. What we are creating now, it's going to be a long-term kind of solution for us right now, because I don't see the world going back to what it used to be. So we are going to have one foot in the virtual world and 1 foot in the real world. So the content we are trying to work on right now in our what we have called residence is we are changing most of our content into digital format so that we can use it on radio, we can send it to TV stations. So we have a lot of content which we've created over the last 20 years, but most of it was for different kind of spaces. So we are changing all this to the content that we'll use forever and ever in the years to come. So that's where we are right now, because we are using this as an opportunity to just rewrite our craft for both worlds. Because we're in a new world. Nobody really knows what is going to happen tomorrow. And we are trying to react in the moment. Just like how you see doctors in ICUs. They're just like trying to, manage the situation. So we are trying also to be very creative and reacting in the moment. What is it that we can do now? What do we have now? Because, you cannot separate art from an artist.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I really like the way you say that. We have the last tweet for the day, which comes from Richard. And Richard's tweet says that artists and creatives have a huge challenge convincing government that they are a real sector that need financial relief. Absolutely, Richard. An artist cannot replace a meeting by an email or work from home, yet they need to replace lost income. Yeah, this is a struggle for creatives across the world, Richard, and spot on for you saying that. I'd like to just go to our guests and ask them to give us their closing remarks as we come to the end of the show, on the way forward, and what message you have to other creatives, as well as policymakers, as stakeholders such as internet providers. I hope, they're listening in terms of how we can, work together with regarding people in the creative industry. And Eva, I'll start with you. Closing remarks and messages you'd like to share with us.
So, yes, thank you very much. But to close this, I would invite everyone to be involved in this new era we are living in. Inviting you to be part of the brands we are creating. Or we already had them, but we are strengthening them through our social medias and our online platforms. Every platform that is monetized. If you need to listen to music, go listen to music that pays so that your artist can get something. It might not even be only me, every artist. Yes, welcome to my series every Monday and Thursday. On my Instagram and my Facebook, you will know much about how we can have fun online, because right now that's the only way, and we gotta stay positive, and the vibe have to stay the same, and despite all this. So I invite you to keep enjoying life, because that's what we do. We provide life, we live life. Yes.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Eva. Thank you for those inspiring words. I would like to go to Hope. Closing remarks, Hope.
I think we can all agree that art has been our best companion in these hard times we've all gone through. We've been watching movies, we've been listening to music, we have seen people dance who have never danced in their homes. The art has not let us down. Art has been our greatest walking stick and the strongest pillar in these times. So now it's time to also support people produce this work. And I also, like, Eva, I want to invite you into the works we are doing, into our initiatives. And like our initiatives have like calls for action. Like we are going to start a call for action just next week. It's a very small one, what we can raise. We just have $1,000 and we are going to do a hashtag Dance My Story. And we are just going to give 20 dancers $50. It is very small, but it will do something. It's a very small something, but right now, $1 is huge in an artist's life. So a small initiative like this, I mean, somebody else can come, oh, I have $2,000. Okay, let's do something around $2,000. Let's give it to visual artists. And also I want to call upon my fellow artists, let's work together. The world has become a global village. We need to just work as one body. Because we really have rich content, and if we market it so well, we will get far with it.
I really like Hope. I really like your attitude. It's just positive. It's go-getter, and I really hope a lot of us can learn from it during these very difficult times. Bernard, Charles, closing remarks. I'll start with you, Charles, briefly.
I think first of all, it's a conversation I've had with Hope offline in the past about art is art. With this whole lockdown, there is no way you're going to have an authority coming up and telling you, oh no, that skirt should not be 1 inch above the knee. We think it should be 3 inches below the ankle. No, we don't think that that lady or that gentleman should have a hairstyle like this. No, art is art, and online is going to prove to us that you cannot beat that. That is number one. Number two is a call to the creatives. Watch where government is going. If there is emphasis in agriculture, in health, if the president is speaking to the soldiers in a certain way, if public transport is being conducted in a certain way, if internet, if education, schools are going to be open by a certain time, everybody is doing online studies, line yourself along there. You will be smiling all the way to the bank.
True. Brenna?
I think that it's a good time for Rwandan artists to go global, go regional. Don't limit yourself. The opportunities are limitless. Right now, the media across the region doesn't have content as such because movements are restricted. We have live shows coming on every weekend. Pitch and just say, look, I'm a Rwandan artist, I'm available, and that would introduce you to another market. So they should really target the global audience. Secondly, I feel that we need to respect artists and their work. Every time you're listening to a song or watching a song, you should think about the energy that goes into producing this kind of work. So let's try as much as we can, give them the respect they need. And it's not just the likes, likes don't buy things, They need the money, so we need to respect their property, and again, the enforcement of copyright. It's really, really important. Creativity thrives in a space where copyright is respected.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Thank you for saying that. Charles,
Yes, I just wanted to add one more thing, and so for Eva Buravan and the other artists.
Yes.
In the 80s, the late President Moi banned all international artists from performing in Kenya, and even banned their music from being played on their radio stations. It did one thing for the Kenyan music market. It shut them up. It's going to be a while before international artists resume performing in Rwanda. It's a huge opportunity for Rwandan artists.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
The future is here. The future came, I think, quicker than most of us expected. virtual reality, virtual shows, virtual concert, virtual meetings, virtual education. This is what we are dealing with. This is what was fast-tracked by this pandemic. To Hope and to Yvan, thank you very much for joining this conversation and having a very solution-oriented conversation regarding creative industry. And I hope other sectors will be discussing this, but we really need to start thinking out of the box. We need to start being innovative, and we need to stay positive amidst this crisis. So thank you very much to our guests, Hope and Yvan. Very, very thankful. Charles, great to have you on the show. Brenna, great to have you on the show as always. And to our viewers, especially those on social media, keep the conversation going using the hashtag #TheSquareRW. To our partners, Uzi Collections and Bourbon Coffee, thank you very much. Have a good night, stay home, stay safe, and see you next week.
Today I have accepted WHO's Safe Hands Challenge. Thank you, Dr. Tedros, for challenging me. First, turn on the tap and wet your hands with water. Apply enough soap to cover all hand surfaces. Rub your hands palm to palm. Don't forget between your fingers and rubbing the back of your hands. Rinse your hands with water, dry thoroughly, and turn the tap with a towel. Your hands are safe now. I have done this because we all have our part to play in preventing the spread of the coronavirus and in protecting the most vulnerable members of the community, including refugees and people forced to flee. Together, we can overcome the COVID-19 pandemic. Be safe, be smart, be kind.
RBA app is here. How to get it? Type RBA. Search. There you go. You have RBA app.